Hello everyone, it is the Redmen podcast. I am Paul Machin, Errol Smith and Chris Pajak join me in the studio for this one. We're on the countdown to Liverpool Porto. We've got some time to kill, so we thought we'd do a podcast that we do every single Tuesday, regardless of whether Liverpool are playing or not. We've got some topics to get through. We've got some kick-off questions from you guys at home as well. We're going to be talking a little bit about Trent AlexanderArnold. Normally, what we did last Tuesday was to kind of stay clear of the evening game, so it's not to date it, but also the Trent stuff completely dated everything we'd done in the build-up to Porto. So we'll talk about Trent, who's not travelled to Porto for this game. And yeah, we're going to talk about the captain's group and a little bit looking back at last weekend and the madness that ensued. Chris Pajak, hi.
Hi.
You good?
Good.
How are you, Aaron?
I'm good.
Good. How's everyone at home? You all good? Excellent, thanks. Right, so it's Alan Oliver with the first question of the day at Chipmeister05. And it's the question that we all want, the burning question for tonight, really, Chris. Who plays right back instead of Trent AlexanderArnold versus Porto? And he's put and City, but fingers crossed it's only... Well, let's just do one.
That really shit me up. Let's look at Porto first. I think it's just as easy as James Milner drops in at right back. I don't think you're messing around anywhere else. I think Nico's been out for a little while, hasn't he? So he's probably not getting dropped into this game. The only other way you could cut it, I mean, obviously someone will mention Joe Gomez as a right back, I'm sure, be it in the comments or maybe around this table. Another thing the Klopp might do, don't think he will, is play two left backs, one on the right, one on the left. As an option, maybe. Don't know.
Errol, what would you do?
That's it. To be honest, I considered Gomez in terms of obviously getting a little bit of rotation for the defenders. I think we spoke about that in the last couple of weeks, really, about game time for them. But I keep saying every time someone asks me, does Gomez go right back? I'm like, no, because in his progression now, he's just got to be a centre-back. That's just where he's got to play. Yeah. There's no point taking a backward step. So, like what you said there, I'd probably just stick Milner in there because you just know it's as like for like as we're probably going to get in that position right now with the options we've got.
I think the other thing as well is, I think Gomez was probably due to start anyway. I thought that was the case. I thought Gomez was going to start with Joel Matip. Yeah, he was in my prediction. And if that's the case, I think you just change one position rather than move Gomez, maybe throw Van Dijk in and then move Gomez to right back. Because I know they haven't had a lot of training, but they'll have at least spoken about it. They've obviously had one training session that I know of yesterday morning. So it might have been just a case. They probably knew about it anyway before the training session. But I think Klopp's mind will be minimal changes to a side that I've probably already changed a few players of already.
Does that change your midfield then?
I can't remember what my midfield was, mate. No, it doesn't because I had Fabinho, Keita and Jordan Henderson in the midfield.
Yeah, spoilers for anyone who keeps the start 11 prediction till the last minute before the game, but yeah, unlucky. Look, it's interesting, and we had the conversation in the build-up to the game about you don't want to do what we did for Palace, and that's change both fullbacks because it upsets the balance of what we do. But the reason why we had to do that was because Trent was ill and pulled out late for that game, so we had no choice but to drop Milner in. So I wonder whether there's something to, and it would be a mad late change if they've not pre-planned for this, of course, is that whether it's Milner or Nico, do you then just stick with Robbo on the left-hand side so as not to make too many changes, because we're already in a world where did you make one or two changes to the centre half? Sorry,
one change to the centre half.
So you put did you go Costas, Gomez, Matip, and now Milner effectively? So you're making three changes to your back four.
The only thing I would say is pause for just having to think about it is you set piece taker, and actually Costas is probably the best one after Trent. Yeah. And then if you're losing Trent, who's taking them? Is it Robbo every time? He's good at them, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's as good as Costas.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting point.
I like that one with both left backs though, just putting them on the other side. It's an out there shout, but it'd be interesting to just see, can he do that job?
Well, we have this all the time, that with this outside shout thing, where people go, but people always go, right footers on the left-hand side, no problem. But then people go, a left footer on the right-hand side, heresy!
What are you talking about, man?
Burn them at the stake. Disgraceful.
Can you imagine a left-footer playing right centre-back?
Yeah,
no.
I mean, it's normally because it's a waste, isn't it? You wouldn't do it if you had the choice.
Yeah.
But as a break glass solution, I have played I had a great time playing right. I'd always prefer playing right back than left back because you get the element of surprise for the first couple of times.
Nowadays, when everyone cuts inside, it might be an advantage to play a left footer and right back.
Yeah, inverted fullbacks. Yeah, go for it. But does that mean you've then got to play Mo on the other side to counterbalance? You're too narrow. You're too narrow then, aren't you?
Come on, mate. This is now the intro for numbers.
I know, yeah.
Flying everywhere.
We had some tweets coming about this, Ross. Put this out whenever this happened. 8-9
in the past
this morning. We can go over to Twitter and have a little scan through. OG Miz said, I want to see Gomez at right back with Matip and Kanate in the middle. Martin Taylor, very unequivocally saying here, Gomez at right back every day. Got to be. Niall Collins says Costas, the eternal one's in Millie. Shane Wilson's going, wow. Would like to see us try 3-4-3 if midfielders keep dropping. Kanate right centre back with Ox wide right. You can get up and down the wing. I've got no. Actually, we've debated this a couple of times, but I wonder how far down the pecking order Ox is in the right back thing, because you could do worse, probably, loads worse than that. But
he left Arsenal for playing wing back, didn't he? So I'm not sure he's going to be happy at playing right back.
Yeah, well, it happens though, doesn't it? It's like James Milner wanted to play centre mids, and then
if James Milner can play left back for an entire season and get the assist record in the Champions League while doing it, by the way, I'm sure he can probably play right back.
That was centre mid when he got there.
Was it? Because
we weren't in the Champions League that season.
Oh, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was 16, 17.
Didn't he get 3 against one of the teams we scored 7 against playing left back?
No, he was in the midfield. I think he was in midfield for that. He might have been used as in that game, but 17, 18 he played centre mid. Remember the Brexit midfield, if you recall.
Oh yeah.
We had Andy Robertson that season as well, and Moreno for the first half. But yes. I mean, it's devastating to your point, but you made it with such a plot.
It still stands that he can play right back.
Yeah.
And guess what? He has recently.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Milner's the obvious one, isn't it? And to my point about
it's
like
upsetting. Bet.
Yeah, and about upsetting and not having too much unbalancing of what you're doing. He's done it through the week. So because for me, I was a bit like, I'd have probably played. If I was going to rotate Trent, I have him on the bench. I'd probably chuck Nico in just because he needs to play a game of footy for us. It means that you're now waiting for Preston, which is fine. Fine to make him wait a little bit longer if he's not quite at it. But that'd be a big shout for Nico Williams if he starts this game, because we were sat here 2 weeks ago or whatever, trying to predict what we would do against Milan, and not one of us had a single sniff that Divock Origi was going anywhere near that team. Nope. But it was a very big statement of confidence in Divock, and obviously what he'd been doing in training. So it will be Milner, but it could possibly be Nico Williams, I guess. But
City's different though.
Why? Well, actually, can I ask the point? Can we make the point then? Let's say Trent's out for City. Do you play Milner for 90 minutes in this game if he's got to play 90 against City at the weekend?
You don't, no.
Exactly.
You don't.
So he plays right back in this game.
On that basis, out there, shout Fabinho. He's played right back before.
We do this all the time.
No,
There's
but
no
he takes
way
4 times for Brazil at right back. That's
he used to play for Madrid as well, though, didn't he?
No, Monaco, he never played right back. He was signed as a right back, wasn't he? And then Fabinho was talking about and then he moved to DM. I believe he's only. I'm sure I looked into this last season. He played like 4 times at right back for Brazil.
Really?
And that's about it. Like,
interesting.
Maybe not then.
But he could do it.
The Ox. He could go for the Ox.
And then we're back to Joe Gomez at right back, aren't we? Though.
Yeah, and we've got some shout here in the live comments. Ben Woodburn, good to see he's keeping busy. Has gone. What about Tsimikas? Tsimikas, lads. Could he play right back? 3 different comments. Thanks so much. It worked, drawing attention to your comment there, Ben Woodburn. Thank you so much. You'll obviously know. But then he also said, what about Gomez right back? So I feel like he's lost the courage of his convictions somewhere along the lines there.
Okay, Tom, ban him.
But I mean, Colin H makes a great point here. Where the Trent was filmed in training but hasn't travelled. We still don't have a clearer idea of what is that a time of live streaming, filming, whatever.
Unforeseen circumstances.
You just made
it's
that
a bit of a catch-all, isn't it? Kids gymnastics got cancelled for that the other night.
No, but have you just made that?
Oh yeah, I've just made that up. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
it's a catch-all.
So you've just said it and then commented on like it was a real thing that you've heard. Like they've just put it out as a statement. It's a catch-all phrase, isn't it? It's like it is, but it's not. It's a phrase you've just
made up.
spuriously thrown out there.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't trying to pretend.
Okay, cool.
So you'd save Milner for City then on that basis?
I'm not sure I would. I don't know what to do against City if Trent's not there. It's a really tough one, isn't it? I mean...
Shows how heavily reliant we are on Trent, though, just in this conversation alone. Like.
I do trust James Milner, actually. Yeah. I would play him against City. Yeah. There you go.
But would you play him for 2 on the bounce?
Yeah, 5-day break, fine.
Yeah, it's a big one. Big one.
I played at the weekend, 2 games in 5 days. Yeah, sounds.
Yeah, here we go. Chris Thorne in the comments here. Chris's delivery was like official statement from the club, unforeseen circumstances. What? It's not really. It's just to clarify. Trent is not. It's not. It's fine. Robbie Brown. With the super chat, thank you so much. Robbie says, "Hi gents, I was lucky enough to get an away ticket for the Brentford game. Want to say a thank you for your balanced analysis after the game, as too many were swept up in the emotion." Yeah, it's just like it's just because we're really old and jaded. That's why it's hard to get swept up one way.
It's the other way down though. I mean, we're really old, definitely, but like we're just don't feel like you need to just go with the wind. You know what I mean? It's like here's the thing: like loads of people, I think anyway, either make up their mind off social media or use it to inform their opinions, whereas I kind of don't. I've never done I'm going to check Twitter before I do a video to see which way the wind's blowing. Yeah. I'll just tell it as I see it. And if it's a popular opinion, which it never is, sound, and if it isn't, sound. Who cares?
I always used to use it as an affirmation, because I'd be like, how do I feel about that? And then I would check social media, because we've always done like the match reactions. So we've always been we used to comments from Facebook back in the day, and then Twitter, and now we're doing it in the live streams. And when people were dead angry, it made me feel happy, because I was like, it's not ruining my day in that way. I feel a bit down. Yeah. And it's why we got the Arsenal Fan TV model, and again, I'm not going to get lost in this of like, there's lots of balanced voices on Arsenal Fan TV, but the ones when we talk about it, we know what I mean. It's the over the top reactions, and people that used to say to us, and people like in businesses, like, you should go and do what they do, and it's like, those people don't exist who support Liverpool. And if they do, they're not really at the match, or they don't hang around after the match, and they don't care enough to put their opinions out there. We've been at games and grounds up and down the country for years and never found more than a very minor isolated cases of people having those kind of reactions, because really, when Liverpool lose, you're just a bit like, you just want to go put your head down and get on with your day. There's not go and start shouting and screaming and ranting and raving. So when you see it on social media, again, it always just be like, I just quite like taking the piss, and then that made me feel better to kind of see that there's people losing the shit over it. But now you're right. Now, instead of seeing that, people go, oh, whether like perniciously or whatever, it affects them. It changes them. It alters your mood, instead of being able to go, oh God. Like there's a sheet of glass between you and all this craziness going on. It feels like it's a bit more.
Also, if like you're heavily involved in like the Twitter sphere and all that type of stuff, you're gonna be dragged down by it, because you see it all the time, aren't you? Whereas if you're not, you can just enjoy your life, then go and enjoy the footy without it all, and then you'll get a clear idea of where you are.
See, I was sound because I didn't have anything like that. I didn't have the Twitter or the socials to be dragged into it, but I've been more engrossed in like football group chats over the last 12 months, and they can be just as bad sometimes.
Well, and I wonder whether it's that
the knee-jerk reactions to certain things, but then at the same time, it is good to see the way that people everybody kind of dissects the game slightly different, and I do kind of enjoy that kind of back and forth when you're sitting there with people, because they'll make a certain points and you'll think, all right, well, I didn't actually see it that way, but it's not from a place of they want to kick us while they're down. It's just that, you know, they're passionately caring about what they're seeing and how they see their lens of the club. Do you know
that's
what I mean?
And I that's why I love these shows and like the final words and the instant match reactions and stuff, because it's better when there's two of us.
Yeah.
Because you can say something that I disagree with, and 5 minutes later I can go, oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. You know what I mean? Whereas on Twitter, that would last 16 hours. You'd never actually get the point across that you had in the 5 minutes we were talking.
Yeah.
And I'm got my pitchfork out anyway. Yeah. And I'm not looking to have my mind changed.
Yeah, and moreover, you might have changed your opinion, but because I can't see that you've changed your opinion, because all I can see of you is that last comment that you left, which is you with your pitchfork out, I'm then reacting angrily to something you did 16 hours ago that you're making a cup of tea.
Off, yeah,
you're making a cup of tea and having a
When's he going to reply?
Yeah, honestly, like you mean, but that's it. But I never considered the group chat thing and how that's like, and obviously just a very clever way for Errol to mention this podcast as well, by the way. The group chat podcast. Everyone.
He's got a new one coming up. Have you seen this new stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Looks bosh. Talk about it.
Yeah, go
No!
on. No, do you know what? You need to check it out on Sunday. It's called the Fresh Out the Box Challenge. I won't say no more because I'll be doing the watch along and I'll give it a good push then. But yeah, keep an eye out to YouTube, Fresh Out the Box Challenge UK.
Yeah, and the only way he's going to push it is on his WhatsApp group because he doesn't have social media.
Yeah. I'm on here.
Good luck with that.
Comes on. But I realised that the group chat thing
Did the right for
is that it makes it again, pervades your life easier now because of group chats, because I never really thought about that. I don't really have those WhatsApp groups in my life so much. But particularly if you've got mates of other football clubs in those things. I have a little bit actually because I'm now in like a fancy football. One of the fellas in our family and my uncle who's a United fan's in there, and he drops the occasional like meme or whatever, and then I'm a bit like, you've robbed that from Manchester United Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and it's funny to use, but it's a bit weird and annoying to us. But that's probably where it's worse for people now, is that you can't really switch your WhatsApps off because you know that's a primary method of communication between people that you actually want to talk to as well.
Yeah.
But, yeah, interesting. Anyway, thank you so much for
Good
the
question,
comments from Robbie Brown. Right. Oh, Ashley Frith, would you go for Ivan Toney in the summer?
I thought he played really well, and it's a good first audition if Liverpool are interested in someone like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's straight out the Sir Alex Ferguson book of, if you play well against us, I'm going to sign you because you've pissed me off. But I don't know. I'd need to see more of him. Like, I really liked what he did. Would he suit us as a break glass option potentially? Like, we were rumoured to have a little look at the Leeds centre forward, similar skill set. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, Liverpool fan as well. Probably get him fairly cheap. I can definitely see why you'd be having a look at him this season.
Yeah. Again, if you're looking into is he an upgrade on Divock Origi? Possibly. I guess we'll know more after a season of him in the Premier League.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing, isn't it? You know, right now he might not be, but with a season in the Premier League, he might well be, and certainly against a lad who's probably not going to play more than 1,000 minutes over the course of the season.
Actually, interesting mention there, the Patrick Bamford stuff. So I did a show with Neil Jones, JNO Insights Extra, which is streaming exclusively on the redmentv.com, and he talked about Liverpool's bid or expressed interest in Patrick Bamford in the summer and what the deal is with all that. If you want to check that out, then do. There's a little advert for that coming in a minute. But we've got another question from Sonic Dud, who's Sebastian Fash. Says, what club legend for another club are you jealous of?
Do you want to go first on that one?
Yeah, go on. I liked what you were saying before we went live, but if I had to choose any, and I think we'll probably might all pick strikers in this sense, potentially, I went for my first thought was Drogba. The guy just always seems to score against us as well. He just seems to just always be a handful.
Does that mean he's going to score own goals?
No, he'll score for us if we had them. And then I started to think more long term than that, and I would have just loved to have seen Sergio Aguero play alongside Suarez. I just thought I could just imagine that would have just been a handful for a lot. So that was my last one, and I think that's my answer. I'm gonna.
That's City's. I'd not really thought about that, but that's. I went too far back. I never really considered that, but there was that spell when obviously City got the money, and then they got it right with the money, rather than that time when they spunk loads of cash on loads of players that weren't quite good enough. Hello, Everton Football Club, by the way. But no, I loved Aguero. We had a famously, Chris had a Football Manager save going on where you were Atletico.
You were Valencia.
And I was Valencia, and I had Villa, and you had Aguero, and that was it. I had very jealous glances cast across at that. Yeah,
it was a great game.
It was a great game. Great network games from back in the day.
Our phone bills used to be fucking massive.
Sitting on the home phones, breathing down the line, listening to each other while we were playing.
Hours on end playing these fucking network games.
Click on. Are you ready to go? And I'd have been off doing something else. Oh shit! Sorry, no, I was ready. Fucking.
Yeah, I like my tactics back then, where I wanted to play the same way in pre-season as I would for the season. So if I went 1-0 up in a pre-season game, I'm going 5 at the back, dropping a striker out in pre-season games, and he had to sit there through it all.
Yeah, 12 pre-season games with Chris doing tactical Mourinho masterstrokes on it. But anyway, the Aguero, Silva, and company or whatever, that little spell, I say little elongated spell really, and that was who they'd be on Pez at that time as well, because Liverpool were crap in that period. Yeah. So like David Silva, great, that's a good shot. I went for Peter Schmeichel.
Oh yeah, that's good because it fills a need, big time.
He was a massive bellend, but he was massive, and he was a boss goalie, and he was when I was in my prime years of playing in school and playing in goal and playing for the school team, playing Sunday League and all that. He was the best goalkeeper in the Premier League, and I was really jealous that he played for them because I loved David James because he was Liverpool's goalie. Yeah. But let's be honest,
he was a bit shit.
He was erratic, shall we say? You know, like you don't want to hear stories of like your players blaming N64s for why they've not been good in goal or whatever. So yeah, Peter Schmeichel, I was very jealous. I'm amazed. I'd be amazed if you don't go with David Beckham because of your love for Victoria Beckham.
Incorrect. Alessandro Del Piero.
Because the Sardies?
No, because I loved Juventus back then, as you'll well remember. And I know he's not the best player you could pick. Like, you could pick Maradona for this if you wanted to, you know what I mean? But I was obsessed with Del Piero. I just absolutely loved him. He was just so different to everything we had in the Premier League in those days. Like, he never had those really sort of, until maybe Zola came across, which I'd say was a couple of years, I don't know, actually, maybe it was around the same time. Like, that number 10... they had over in Italy, your Francesco Totti's and all that. I mean, he could have been a fucking one to pick. Someone like that who was there. And am I right in saying he stuck it out with Juve? Like, he stayed when they had all the problems and all that type of stuff as well. So he's a bit of a fucking legend for doing that. Yeah. Like, did they go down to
2? Was it
B?
I think so, yeah.
So,
it was the second one, didn't he get dropped?
So and he went down with them, didn't he? And stayed with them. So there's loads there that I admire apart from just a footballer.
There you go. But also David Beckham for Victoria Beckham.
Who didn't love Victoria Beckham? That's true.
Conor McMullen with the super chat asks the question. I was born in 2000. My favourite player is Stevie G. Who is yours and why? We'll come back to that after a very short break. As mentioned, I sat down with Neil Jones from goal.com to get some journalistic insight into the big Liverpool stories. We're doing the show every week on the redmentv.com. Last week, we talked about Patrick Bamford, and we talked about a lot of the youth players coming through that got their bows in the Norwich game, and in particular, the potential there of Cade Gordon.
So if Liverpool wanted to buy a understudy for Mo Salah, who would it be? You know, who can you bring in? So let's say Adama Traore is your guy that you want to bring in. So yeah, he may well have played against Norwich in that League Cup game and scored 2 and looked $1 million, but he's still going to be on the bench next time you play. And then all of a sudden you're paying him, you know, $100,000 a week, or you know, you've got a 50 million signing fee, a transfer fee, and you might have an unhappy player. But you've got Cade Gordon, who long term could be better. I think he probably will be better. You know, if he goes along the same path, but he may also be able to do it now. The same amount of overall sort of lifting as a 30-40 million pound player. Now that's a big shout to say about a 16-year-old, but that's the gamble that they're taking with him. That, you know what, actually, if we have a couple of injuries up front, we can put him on the bench, and we might not bring him on, but if it comes down to it and you need 15 minutes from him, he can play in that environment. And you know, City done it really successfully with Phil Foden. You know, and there was a lot of people had conversations about Phil Foden saying, does he need to go on loan? You know, is Pep mismanaging him? Is he, you know, he's holding him back? Does he need to give him more games? But actually, City did it really well, I thought, with him, and they just give him enough to make an impact, enough to keep him sort of hungry, and you know, keep moving the stick a little bit further, and you're chasing it and go on. You're getting close. And then by the time he was like, right, 19, 20, and he'd filled out a bit, it wasn't just like, right, Phil Foden's going to feel his way into the first team. It was right, he starts now, and he's a brilliant player. He's going to play for his country, and I think Liverpool have done that. City did that really well with him, and I wonder whether Liverpool, you know, it looked a little bit like Liverpool had done it with Harvey Elliott at the start of this season, and obviously circumstance intervenes. I think they might do something similar with Gordon, you know, 10 minutes here and there, and there you go.
Yes, do check out Journo Insight, one of our extra shows we do exclusively on the redmentv.com with Neil Jones. Brilliant fun. I always have a good laugh on that stuff. And yeah, if you want to know more about the Liverpool's interest in Patrick Bamford as well, some really interesting stuff from Neil on that as well. Do go and check it out. Connor asked us pre the break. I was born in 2000. My favourite player is Stevie G. Who is yours and why? I depends on my mood, but I've got a bunch. It's like asking me what my favourite film is. Yeah. Probably Robbie Fowler of all time. Just because he was just the epitome of what it was like to grow up in this city in the 90s and have that young hero to kind of hold up. Errol, you're a little bit younger than us. What was yours?
all my favourites broke me heart. I'm not gonna lie. They just seem to find a way to do it. When I was coming up, obviously Torres for a period of time was just unbelievable, and obviously not so much what he won for us, but just the way he played football and the elegance that he had, and he could literally just pick a corner and just find it with whatever type of shot that he wanted. But I always like strikers, I always like pacey strikers, so for me, he didn't do loads for us, but I just liked it. I think it was his personality and his swag. I loved Djibril Cissé when I was a kid. There was just something about him. He was a bit mad, but I just really, really liked him. Obviously, I love Gerrard and stuff like that, but the out there ones was like Cissé or Torres for me, and then obviously Suarez stole my heart and then broke it as well, so it is what it is.
Yeah, Fowler when I was growing up would be it. Carragher then took over the mantle for years and years and years.
What was it about Carragher then?
Just the fact that like he wasn't as good as everyone else, and he made himself like a world-class defender. Yeah. And I think it always stupidly gave me, like, you can do it if you fucking try hard. Yeah. Like, and that was it. You weren't born with the skills of a Steven Gerrard, but you can still make yourself just as important to the team. So that was for me why I loved him. And then, but the player that I've enjoyed watching more than anyone was Luis Suarez. For being in the ground and seeing what he could do with a football for a pure enjoyment.
Never seen anything like it.
Yeah, I've never seen
nothing's come close.
Yeah, I've never. I mean, again, we can talk about it, and like Salah's absolutely outstripped him in terms of what he's done for the club and what he's brought with the silverware and the goals, all that stuff. He will have had a much bigger impact than Suarez ever did, and the same for Steven Gerrard and loads of other lads who went before. I've never seen a better footballer at Liverpool than Luis Suarez. Like,
and I think if you ask someone who's maybe a generation older than us, they'll say Barnes to you. And Barnes is there. We watched him do things that no other footballer had ever done before. Suarez is probably mine.
Yeah, and to be fair, I say this all the time. My dad, who adores Kenny Dalglish, and that's the generation before that, is like Suarez. You know, in terms of like the best player that's ever, the actual technically most gifted footballer that's ever played for Liverpool is Suarez. It was
such a coup as well. Times we used to buy shit players around them times, and to just pick him up for like 22 mil or something like that, and we're just like, yeah, we'll have him.
We had a great track record, and this has been the point I always make when people go like, oh, what happens when your good players move on? And of course, it's just something that you grow up with eventually. But like when Fowler left, I was heartbroken, but we already had Owen at that point, and then obviously we softened the blow by having Anelka on loan for a bit, and then we fucked it by buying Diouf. But there's always another one, because Liverpool are always good enough to attract. I had Brian Reading, Mirror journalist and author. He's doing an episode of Liverpool Library, which is going out on the website soon. But he talked about like the brilliance of Liverpool. People can talk about other football clubs all they want, but how did Liverpool sustain themselves as being one of the top 5 biggest football clubs when they didn't win the domestic league for 30 years? And it's because Liverpool have got something about them. It's a whole combination of factors, but yeah, you know,
you can look back at that striker and go back to the 70s of handing the mantle over. Yeah, like the problem was never us having a boss striker, was it? Like, I mean, even when Rush left, you know, we had Aldridge, and then we got Rush back anyway, and that carried on like some unbelievable relay from the 70s. Like Keegan going, you know, European Footballer of the Year, whatever goes. Kenny Dalglish sounds sort of replaced almost straight away, and that was what Liverpool have kind of always done, isn't it? The problem we've had is the fucking left backs and the goalkeepers and the centre halves. Yeah. We're never as good as picking them out as we are the strikers.
Yeah. In fact, if you want, Tom, we did a Cop Chronicles on Keegan, right? Yeah, if you want to know more about Kevin Keegan this time at Liverpool, then the Cop Chronicles series, which Tom lovingly put together earlier on in the year, all episodes are streaming on the redmentv.com. A couple of comments on regards to this. D and Robbie the God Fowler of his. Welston says John Barnes equals the best, and Taylor says Steve Nicol for life. It's a shame, isn't it, when people turn out to be utter bellends, and Steve Nicol, since he's moved to America and started doing all his punditry stuff, is one of the biggest. He's a wet wipe him, isn't he? Like, you know what I mean? He is a fucking, he's a nappy sack him, like, you know what I mean? He's fucking terrible. Shame. I'm going to end up on like a tour with him at some point. Yeah.
And I'll be there going, he called you.
I'll be like, it's true. You're a fucking proper minge bag on telly. Be nicer. Right, Sal, we're going to move on. We're going to talk about the captain's group. So Jurgen Klopp was asked by Neil Jones, no less, which is further proof that he is a journo who does have insight, asked him about Liverpool's captain's group, which currently consisted up until this week of Henderson, Milner and Van Dijk, and it was Gini Wijnaldum. Klopp said, Chris, that because there was a point basically last season when most of them were unavailable, obviously Gini Wijnaldum notwithstanding, he felt the need to extend it out to 6 people, so they put it to a vote amongst the players, and the players that came in were Trent, Alisson and Andy Robertson. Interesting?
Yeah, I actually find it more interesting about the players that would be a bit annoyed not to make the 6, you know what I mean? Because I'm looking at Salah going, what's going on in it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What's going on there? Like, maybe Bobby Firmino's been here a long time now. Maybe he should be considered part of it. Fabinho, for his influence on the side. There's 3 players there that I think will feel, not disgruntled, but disappointed to not be voted by their peers as a potential captain. Salah, I think, is the one where I think, Christ, you just give it to him because he's that good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't care how he is behind the scenes. It's just he's really, really good at the footy.
Yeah.
But as far as Trent, Alisson and Robbo go, you can see it in them. They are leaders. You know what I mean? I can understand why they've been picked.
It's the difference, isn't it, between what a captain is and what we recognise as a captain? Because the Salah stuff is interesting in its own right. And I'm quite encouraged in some regards because it says to me, and obviously it might be a bit of a popularity contest to some extent, or it might just be Salah just like, I'm not asked. Yeah. Don't even bother considering me because I can't be asked with. It doesn't want the extra work, you know what I mean? But it stands to reason. If you're in the captain's group, it's that it's not just about who does what on the pitch. It's not about putting the armband on. It's the whole thing and how they knit the group together. It's like it's the social aspect of Liverpool Football Club that's kind of being. The Alisson Becker stuff's fascinating because again, you know, I would never have naturally thought that he would have been in there. I'd have put.
He seems like a father figure though in that group to me. Maybe a little. Maybe it's the hair, maybe it's the beard, maybe it's all that he's got going on. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't. Sometimes there are leaders that are just leaders on the pitch that don't have to have an armband round them for them to still show their importance. And for me, Mo Salah's that guy. You'll follow my lead because if I'm going to go into war and I'm going to go into battle, use 10 behind me, you're all going to join me as well. Do you know what I mean? If I'm going to like that statement that he put out on, I don't know if it was Instagram or Twitter, but I've seen a caption of it last year where he's basically saying, look, you know, we haven't had the season's not gone the way we wanted. You know, we are champions at the moment and we'll give everything to the last game as champions. That to me was a statement from a captain. Because it kind of embodies the kind of attitude and mentality that if he's declaring that publicly, he means that conversation's already happened with the lads in the dressing room and the changes, and he's already spoke to them about that and the importance of, you know, when the chips are down, this is what's going to matter for us. This is what people will remember. You know, they'll love the fact that we've won things, but they'll remember us in our low times and how we dragged ourselves out of it. So that kind of mentality to me says a lot, and it doesn't necessarily matter that he might not have put his name in the ring or the other players haven't put him forward, but he's one of those guys that you can still depend on the pitch no matter whether he's got the armband or not for me.
That's right.
Yeah, it's fascinating because I noticed in the middle we're trying to stir a few things up about the Salah stuff, Salah not being picked or whatever. But again, it's I don't know. I wonder whether they think about it, whether you know it stands to reason that it's probably not a popularity.
They're
contest,
looking for the story out of it, though, aren't they? They're trying to gloss it up and find something that might not necessarily be there, but
it does speak. I mean, let's just talk it for sensationalist sake. I mean, you're looking at lads there who've. I mean, Robbo's not. Is Robbo due a contract? I think he might be. It might any. But Trent and Alisson in particular have just been boxed. You can't see Alisson going anywhere. You've in Hendo, Milner, and Van Dijk. You know, you're talking 31, 35, 30. I think that is in ages there as well. We've got to start priming the next
generation.
Yeah, you know, you've got to start having these lads ready to step up. And in terms of senior footballers, I agree. I think Fabinho would probably come into this as well. And you would like to think Mane, Firmino, Salah would all be in and around that, of course. But yeah, I quite like that. I quite like that notion of you might have Liverpool's next captain in that group there.
Trent's got to be the next captain at some point, hasn't he? I mean, maybe because we all seen Gerrard be the captain for so long, and he's a Scouser, he's from Liverpool, and he was the captain, and then it was kind of handed over to Henderson. You could see the traits within Henderson that Gerrard kind of embodied, and you thought, okay, that makes sense. He's been here for long enough, and he's kind of like holding it together. And that season 13-14, I think he broke out into his own, so people kind of had a newfound respect for him at that time. So it was a natural transition. Whereas you think by the time Henderson's getting on to 32, 33, Trent will be coming into his prime years, and you will be looking over your shoulder to say, well, I can pass it back, and it's another natural fit to say, we've got this group, but in terms of who holds and knits this whole squad together, who gets it, who's been here from the academy right through the whole Liverpool family and system, it's Trent Alexander-Arnold.
I really like the idea of being Trent. I think a problem is, of course, I'm judging him at 22 years old, and I think that's too young to have it right now, particularly when you've got lads who are when Henderson's there and he's got years ahead of him. And the problem is that Henderson's become the new benchmark in a completely different way to what Gerrard was. It's all the things, I don't know that Steven Gerrard gets voted for captaincy in the same way this time because of what else is required. Do you need to be the leader of the group chat now as well? Because it's how much you pull on the squad together when they're not in Melwood in Kirby and all around it potentially. But the Trent stuff, I think we're starting to see captain-like traits in him, Chris. And the one that stands to me was the derby last season when Hendo goes off and Trent tries to grab that game from right back by the scruff of the neck and does a pretty damn good job of it, albeit one where we end up losing our first derby in God knows how long. But that I like. It's a nice story, isn't it? And there is definitely something to that extra pride locally of having a local lad be given the armband.
There is, but I don't think he's the right person to be the next captain of Liverpool. I think Virgil van Dijk is.
Yeah.
I think, you're probably looking at Hendo's going to be, I would guess, very similar to what Redknapp ended up being, which was the club captain. But with all of his injuries, he wasn't on the pitch. Now, in a couple of years' time, is Hendo in our best midfield? I don't know the answer, but I tell you who's going to be right in the middle of the back four as long as he's fit. It's Virgil van Dijk.
Yeah. True.
So for me, you might get another year or two of Henderson where he's playing every week. But then after that, it's Virgil van Dijk for a few years. And then by that time, Trent might be 26, 27 and ready to then pick up the captaincy. Because I see him as a future captain. And I get the point. And your points are all spot on. But you don't skip over Virgil van Dijk. Like, you know what I mean? I'm fine with you skipping over Prince Charles if you want to make him like, but not Virgil van Dijk.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's a really good point actually, and it makes me wonder though in terms of like on whether there's a value to your captain being British, and I think Virgil probably is an exception to this.
But I actually think there might be a value to him not being British.
Okay,
because your squad's not all British.
True.
It's much more multicultural than it ever was. So there's two ways of looking at that. Is it having that Scouse heartbeat, that understanding in the football club that you want, which I think is massively important? Or is it a fella who can bring everybody together? And that's not to say that Trent can't. Yeah. But I know that Virgil can. He's captained this country, for goodness sakes. Like, it's something that he's done. He's been that sort of figure on the pitch as a captain time and time again for Liverpool. You could go it both ways. Mm-hmm. Like, you know what I mean?
And the thing for me, and again, because why I say the British thing is not for any of those reasons that you're talking about and the lack of multiculturalism or whatever, is that having a lad who's in the referee's ear and is very good at doing that is a very, you know what I mean? It's like Henderson and Milner are brilliant. This stuff Milner gets away with is ridiculous. Yeah. Like, again, and it's daft because we see certain of our players without going down that path too much who seem to get far less pleasant treatment from referees for a variety of reasons, which I couldn't possibly put my finger on too much. But I don't know. And again, it's probably a small marginal thing. And Trent's not right for that yet. You know, even because again he's still a bit of a young lad, he comes across as a bit brash at times. Yeah. You know, at times. But when you've got that aura around you, when he's a bit more broad-chested and he's a bit more been there and done it, and he's maybe got a few more medals dangling around his neck, and all of a sudden he's looking down, he's looking at referees and going, and referees go, oh, go on.
I've got no problem with Virg being it either. By the way, I think because of what he's won and the fact that, you know, the respect that every single footballer seems to have for this man in the game at the moment, it makes sense, is what you're saying, and maybe Trent in his later years. But I'm like a romantic in that sense. I love the idea of, you know, the Scouse lad being able to wave the flag and just say for us, you know, this is the DNA, this is the ingredients and the minerals any of you lads are going to need to lace up and play with me. Yeah. And if you're not upholding these standards, you can leg it. And telling them in no uncertain ways, where I think they're just probably a bit more of a diplomat in that sense. Maybe I'm wrong, and I might be reading him completely wrong in terms of his demeanour, but I think you're right in the sense that Trent could still probably learn a lot from Verge's leadership style as well. So he's probably already done that in terms of the game management and stuff and how he plays. But again, that captaincy and that side of things, it would be interesting.
The other thing to think about is Gerrard came on, I think, when he was made the captain. You know what I mean? And he was made the captain very young as well, wasn't he? And he improved after the fact. Trent could go on and do the same. There's lads who play for football teams who don't need the captaincy. Carragher was one of them. He was the captain on the pitch. Trent's kind of one of them for me as well. I'm not saying Verge needs it, by the way, but like, he feels everything. Like, he's just emotionally invested. He's going to hold you to those standards of his football club, whether he's wearing the armband or he's not.
And there is also, again, a little bit of a danger about the scouts thing on the flip, or where you'd end up with Gerrard and Carragher possibly had too much power in the dressing room because of that untouchability of being scouts, you know what I mean? And sometimes you don't necessarily, and that's why Hendo is above and beyond, because he's constantly fighting for his right. In that, you know, if you're settled, you're like, I'm the locals, I'm bulletproof. If I'm, you know, if you all of a sudden realise that you're bigger and more essential to the fan base and than the manager, then that's a weird situation, because obviously we'd go to war for Trent AlexanderArnold on the back of the scouts thing moving forward. The only thing, the Carragher stuff, because you're dead right on that, but what we'll never know. Because that was the notion that was spun after the fact of Carragher didn't need it. But I wonder if Gerrard wasn't being courted quite so much by other football clubs, would we just have given it to Carragher? And of course, when Gerrard gets it off hippier, doesn't he? Yeah. And he's still he's still quite young at that point as well. But it's interesting to note that, like, if Liverpool are the level then, we're at the level then that they are now, does Gerrard even get the armband? Because again, the pressures that it comes with, would Gerrard have actually been freed from having to be the figure and just get on with his game, and you give it to the lad who does all the other bits and pieces better? Yeah. It's mad, and we don't know what the next captain your best player, or is he the best fit for it? Because, sorry, I know we got like a shout here from Connor S saying captain choice, either the Great Wall of Holland or the Scottish Flash, and like an Andy Robertson shout of having someone who's just bubbly, loads of personality, but as you know, shows that fighting determination as an aside. He could be an outside.
Did he have groups like in the same sort of size as when Gerrard was talking about?
I don't believe so.
I think that's probably a reasonable dynamic, because you're probably getting the best of everybody then in that sense, and everybody can kind of pick up responsibilities, and then there's the guy at the top who picks up that sole responsibility and that ultimate leadership role, whereas, as you're saying there about Gerrard, he had to have it all, and it probably did. Even though it added to his game to an extent and he gave an extra 10-15%, it probably still weighed heavy on him. So
I still think about the Gerrard captains. I think there's games when you look to your captain, and there's a function that a captain has to perform on the pitch, and he's the guy, as I said before, who's got to be in the ref's face. He's got to be the first port of call, and when things go south, he's got to throw himself in the way of it. And I always think back to, and it's a mad thing to like, because I've knocked Gerrard's captaincy for, but Old Trafford, when Mascherano gets sent off, and Mascherano is getting, his head's gone completely, and Gerrard just needs to go and step in between there, and he doesn't. And the Man United players, who were all experts at fucking shithouses at that point, are just picking on it and winding them, and they effectively get Mascherano sent off. Whereas, in another world, like, there's no way Jordan Henderson's
in
not
the middle of that.
Exactly.
He's fronting all of the Man United players all at once, because that's what he does.
Yeah. Magic Steve saying I'm going for Robbo for next captain. He's a great captain for Scotland. Known Pleasure saying captains are not as important as they used to be. I think it's weird. I think because I get the notion of that. I think they're actually more important in some regards, but I think less in that point of, you say, clubs that are struggling use it as a bargaining tool to help keep their best players at the football clubs. I hope to see us be a football club that, again, gives it to the best man or best set of men that give us more and beyond that. But it's an interesting point, and hopefully not one we have to worry about for a few more years yet. But I wonder whether, because you never know, do you? It's like when you have those and here's going to be England's squad at the next World Cup things that people do 4 years in advance, and you look at them 4 years on and you're like, oh my God, remember him? He's not even playing football anymore. And whether there's a chance in 4 years' time, Jordan might go on for at least another 4 years, that we've signed someone in that position, period of time who becomes the de facto leader of the squad in the meantime. So yeah, funny. But loads of shouts here for Virgil, by the way, loads and loads. I think he was probably the most popular amongst them. Let's quickly talk about the weekend then. Just excuse to talk about Man United's woes really again, Chris. Good fun on these podcasts. I loved the fact that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer went to extreme lengths to play his mind games to get penalties for Manchester United. They got a penalty and Bruno Fernandes fucked it.
Yeah, and it was all Martinez, wasn't it? I mean, giving it the absolute biffers to Cristiano Ronaldo and all that type of stuff. Like, you take it, no, you take it, you take it.
I dare you to take it.
You little bitch. Take it.
You take it, I'll save yours. I'll save yours.
But you're going to sky it over the bar, so we don't need to save yours. Because that was it. I didn't watch it live. I watched it sort of half an hour after the game finished, and I'm looking at his run-up, and I'm chatting to Sai, he's showing me on his phone, and I'm like, how's he sky that over the bar with the run-up? I said, he mustn't do the run-up, because it's just so hard to sky that over the bar, I think, when you're doing the run-up, and he didn't do the run-up. I was like, hey, come on, my son.
Yeah, it was brilliant. Quality. Funnily enough, the two games were on at lunchtime, weren't they? And I think the Chelsea City game had just finished a little bit earlier. So as that was finishing on BT, I heard them going, it's 1-0 to Villa, and I was like, they've got a goal, like that's even better, because it had been checking the scores, it had been 0-0 the whole match. I was like, that's even better. I'll go over to a certain MG on YouTube, and I'll watch his watch along now just to see how they get on.
So you got to watch his reaction live.
It was fucking quality.
What was saying?
So I'm just seeing the comments going, it's pen, and I'm thinking, who's got a pen? Was it the Aston Villa goal? Was that a pen? And then I'm checking my scores. I'm like, so that wasn't a pen. So they've scored. So Man U, and then at that point I'm thinking, what you just said, the Ollie mind games. I was like, that bastard, how's he wrangled a pen out of these refs? What happened there? And they're like, it was a clear handball. So Gobert absolutely made up. He's rubbing his hands. He's like, yeah, we've got a penalty. He's like, but it doesn't save nothing from the game. We should have had this to bed. We should have won. And he's still very up there because he's demanding better from his Man United side, which, to be fair, they should be doing a lot better than what he did. And then they miss it. And Bruno's taking it. And he didn't even, it wasn't even out there. It was just an inward. I'm dying inside. Like, I'm actually dying inside. He missed that. He thought it was a dead save just to get the point, and it wasn't. And then it was, you'll wait and see my match reaction after this. I might even say Ollie else. And I was just like, he's gonna go. So it was quality.
It's just so pleasurable to see those kind of things happen, because it's delicious. It's absolutely delicious. And again, on the stuff, and to be fair, I want to give credit. I don't know who did the graphic. Maybe if Ross is watching, he can tell us. But Ross obviously took upon himself to rip the piss out of Bruno Fernandes and his apology. And Man United have got this new apology template that they use on social media, where like someone says, "I'm dead sorry for being a bit shit," and then it's the responsible as mates going, "It's sound lad, don't worry about it. Yeah, come back stronger, bro." And it's like, just fuck it off. Like, I get it. I don't mind. Like Loris Karius walking around the fucking stadium, walking around Kiev going, I'm sorry, and crying. You're like, you should be, but also fine. Like, good on you. You've just crossed as a Champions League final. Apologise for things. You know, when you've individually fucked it, then fine. But like, it's September and you've missed the pen. And
there's 10 other lads there that could have got you out of the ship before the 93rd minute, effectively, and they haven't done their job either. So where's their apologies? I'm going
to try and get up out of the tweet, because there's a great piece of wonderful design work done around it.
It wasn't. I mean, Man U, if that's their style of play for the season, they are going to struggle. Do they have quality players that should be playing better? Undoubtedly. But when they are doing stuff like that, they're building a rod for their own back, because their fan base has become just as bad in some ways as Arsenal's fan base. Do you know what I mean? In terms of, obviously, they have this expectation that they should be winning things and they should be challenging. Again, you can have arguments as to why they should definitely be in those conversations. But being so, if he's not in pole position in September, then he needs to be sacked in October. Well, yeah, it's so crazy to me.
The problem is there's an undercurrent of all this, and I think this sort of stems from group chats and social media, and also just our own analysis of our teams, where you look at the things that you perceive might be a problem, but you're like, maybe you go, okay, well, it'll be fine because of all these other things going for it. Or maybe within your fan bases, people go, like in our situation last season, it was like the centre-half thing became just a hot-button topic because Liverpool have left themselves short in positions in God knows how many windows. But you tend to go, oh, it'll be fine because they've clearly thought about it. When it goes tits up, it leads to a panic situation. And the problem United have got is, I think, deep down at their core, they are aware that they're not quite the finished article, but they're also very aware that with what they've spent and what they've got, you should still be able to put it together. So when it does fall short, you're going to get a bigger reaction because the people who've been saying, oh, this is a problem, get to go, yeah, I told you. And the other people who are just a bit more emotional over it because they're like, oh shit, I defended this.
Yeah, I got really invested.
And you feel more hurt because it's not going out for you. And when it's not us that it's happening to, and when it's happening to Manchester United instead, it's fucking brilliant. Long may it continue. Can I draw attention then? I don't know who did the graphical work on this. If Ross's photoshopping skills have been getting better, but he's got a tweet out saying, no excuses for the misspelled tweet early today on the Redmen TV. I'm my biggest critic, but as always, I'll use it to drive me forward. More than my disappointment, though, the branding of the business today is the most important. I'll be ready for next time. Hashtag together always from our account. Yoni Wiseman with you all day. LFC, Leon, get out of my club. Top of the time. With you every day of the year. Better together, always United. Grizz, here for you always. Zane, we are here with you. We learn from our mistakes. You will come back stronger. 6-time champs. The whole fan base and club are behind you. And Jack LFC. What's this all about? Absolutely.
That's quality.
Stellar social mediaing from Ross Chandler and friends there.
We love it.
Sometimes I'm incredibly proud of the things that go up and around this business, and that is one of them indeed. Yeah, boss, long may United's woes continue, but not so long because we want Ollie to stay in, of course. So maybe pick up a win in midweek.
Ollie for the win.
Yeah, definitely. Just got to keep it ticking over.
Just a sniff of fourth is just enough.
Keep them on the fringes of not being too far away from a title challenge until the point that they're so deep in the season that they're all of a sudden in a battle for fourth and not realised it, and the goals have shifted so that you become passionate about that fight for fourth and maybe another trophy or something on the line. Obviously not the League Cup. Yeah, we'll see. Right, just briefly then, Chelsea got it all wrong against City, didn't they, Errol?
Yeah, they did. Do you know what? Everyone's kind of talked up City. Everyone's talked up Chelsea is they've got it all. And in terms of the players that they've got, I'd argue that they probably have. It's just the way that they set up against City that for me was just completely wrong. They should have done it the flip for me. They should have attacked for the first 45 minutes, seen how that got them, just kind of got into a bit of a dogfight with City and just say, we'll play a bit of a basketball game, we'll attack, you'll attack, we'll attack, you'll attack, because that way it's going to be a little bit more open and we'll see where the chips lie at the end of the first 45 minutes to an hour. When they did it the other way around and they just kind of sat within them, being the home team as well, sitting within themselves and not kind of, nothing stuck with Lukaku up top. I watched it and he had nobody around him to kind of bring into play, to make runs off or running in behind him. There was none of that going on. So when I'm sitting there watching it, I'm thinking, what is it that you're waiting for? You're waiting for a set piece? Are you literally waiting for the one rare counter-attack that everything goes right for you? And for me, it just looked a little bit toothless. And I thought, City are probably the anomaly in terms of the way the rest of the league play. So they don't have to set up like that week in, week out. But if there's a run of 4 or 5 games where teams play them like that and that's their approach to the game, they're not going to come away with maximum points.
There's like the vintage European away style performance where go and do that, go and play like that, and then if it goes 1-0, fine, because you've got that, like, you get a corner and then in the 85th minute and everyone gets up and all the crowd get dead nervous or whatever, and you can build a bit of momentum and it gets a bit edgy and maybe you nick one and laughing. But I mean, look, I've seen it work. Brendan Rodgers got decent joy out of it last season, defending for his life and hitting on the counter attack. We've done a bit of that.
But they weren't even doing that though, mate. They weren't really hitting on the counter attack. As I say, nothing was really sticking with Lukaku up top. He didn't have anybody to bring into his play with him to try and develop any sort of counter. So it just looked. Yeah.
It was too much space. It ended up ultra defensive, and that's the problem. That's the problem. Is that sometimes, Chris, is you can do that, and when you've got a boss defence. Well, he clearly trusts his defence. He trusted his defence to defend with 10 men for 45 minutes against Liverpool, and it worked and he got what he needed to out of that game. So we clearly got to trust that he thought that he could keep it tight against Man City. But it is a dangerous game because, again, it's City who live for being given the task of breaking teams down, because that's how most teams come up against them. And if you had to say what's the way to beat City, it is the teams often that just get in their face. But it was, again, it's fine margins at that level, because you can get fucked either way.
I'm a bit torn, to be honest with you, as to whether it was a good decision or a bad decision. I think it's very easy to look back and go, they've lost, he's made a bad decision. I don't think it's as easy. I don't think it's as cut and dry as that, to be honest with you, because for me, nobody dominates the ball against City and wins. Nobody. I've not seen a team do it in 3 or 4 years. And you might be able to name an example, but it's not an option for me that works high percentage. Nobody comes away with 60% possession against City and wins the game. Okay. It doesn't happen. So what would you try that? Maybe with Chelsea's squad you would, because their players are brilliant and they can do that, maybe. What I don't like is changing that style from what's got you to where you are. Yeah. That's what I think the mistake is. Okay. Because I think if you've done it, if it's in your locker and you've done it 5 or 6 times last season, which I don't think they did, to be honest, then maybe it's something that you trust. But change it for a big game against the side that just plays the same way every week leaves you a little bit open. So I'm a bit like, I kind of see why he's done it. I can understand why. With their players, he's probably playing for a draw, is what my overall thing would be. I think it's very easy to come into this league and play conservative, and I think Klopp did that at times during the first title challenge against City, even though, you know, we got ridiculous amount of points. There were games where he was a little bit conservative, Man United, Everton being the 2 ones that sort of stick out, where you go, I really wish he was just a little bit more cavalier, went for the jugular type of thing. Certainly that Man United game was one of them with those injuries and stuff. So I don't know. I mean, it's really tough because City are a great side and they do pose these problems.
But look at that midfield that he put out there. It didn't scream much creativity the other day.
No, but like Kante and Kovacic, they're the 2 lads who could be your Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, because Kante's not seen like that. Yeah. But when he plays at his absolute best, he will drag the ball 30 yards with the ball at his feet.
And that's what he was doing, and he was trying to. But again, he was running down blind alleys for it. The trick is, and I think this was the plan, and it doesn't work because you go 1-0 down before they get to enact the plan. But they bring Kai Havertz on, and they're well better for it all of a sudden, because you've just got that one extra body, and you know, you've not got Werner running down blind alleys. You've not got.
I thought he was half decent, though, to be fair.
Yeah, but the point is that you needed that bridgehead between midfield and attack, which they didn't have, and Kai Havertz helped to provide that. And that's where you do City. You can sit in and soak up a bit of pressure, but you can't go direct against them, because they'll have you all day, because they've got good defenders. So, you know, you've got to have
pace of numbers is what you need to break on them with. And if you're not going to do that, then your game plan's probably not going to work. But I think it's just too easy, to look at the results and decide. Yeah. And decide whether they got right or wrong.
Masterclass if it works, and you're stupid if it doesn't, because you've offered nothing going the other way. You're called toothless when it doesn't work. That's why the classic European away performance.
City were 10 minutes away from frustrating themselves, though, and burning out and not being able to score or break them down. And Chelsea's plan would have slightly started to work, because as you say there, you bring on Kai Havertz and you've got that bridge between your midfield and attack. It was just, a lot of people have said that, you know, or made remarks about Tuchel's in-game management. I think Joe Cole said that all the time. If it was me at this point now, for 45 minutes, it's worked because you've stifled them and you've got it 0-0. Great. Bring Kai Havertz on now and go for it. Make the first 15 minutes of the second half your time. Yep. If you do that and you can take it away from City and you might get the first goal, it piles more pressure onto them and you can almost revert back to what was working, and you've got fresher legs in Kai Havertz there that's going to do more of the dogged work. You've got more players to go into that counter-attack as well. I think because it hasn't worked for Tuchel this time, I think what it will give him is a good lesson of what he needs to do next time round, because he's had success against Guardiola a few times already since he's moved
against him. Goodness me,
as well. Do you know what I mean? Since he's moved, and it was more. I think it's probably the first time that he's changed his approach over Guardiola changing his approach to how he's went into the game. Yeah. So he'll probably take a lot in terms of learning from it. And he was probably only a couple of minutes. I would have just liked to have seen, like, this is what teams always see when it comes to whether it's your Brentfords against us, or sometimes it's the City games, or Chelsea. When Chelsea played us, that first 30, 35, 40 minutes, we was dead equals.
Yeah.
as good as you are going forward, we're as good going forward. I want to see more teams play City with that mentality. And maybe that's just because, as a fan, I just want to see other teams challenge them.
And I wonder if he actually gone from the back 45 minutes of Arsenal, gone, if I can do that against Liverpool with 10 men, I can do it against City with 11. And all of a sudden, I've cut the legs off City a little bit by showing them to be a bit toothless, and what does that do? And he's gambled and it's gone wrong. It's also worth pointing out Reece James gets injured in that game, so they have to go Aspilicueta at right wing back, and then you've hampered it. That's your pace gone down that side. He's a big weapon for them. Just lastly, before we wrap up, Luke Bland asked us that I'm picking a puppy Cavapoo up in 3 weeks. What LFC inspired name shall I call him? Current or previous players / manager names? I'm going with just call him Mo, because I think you need to have a name that you can shout, because you need to shout and summon your dog, don't you? So you don't want something that's a bit awkward to out there.
No, I'm a big fan of bog standard names for animals. So Andrew, for Andrew Robertson, because I think he's shouting in the park. Andrew's just fucking hilarious. Or like if it was a girl, Mary, you know what I mean? Just a really shit. Sorry, any Marys watching the name. That you can shout across the park. I just love it. I just and
Andrews as well.
Andrew! And everyone turns around. It's like,
the dog could be a good name for the dog, though, couldn't it?
I like Nico as well.
Nico.
Yeah, I know he's not doing much, but you know he might do in the next 5 to 5
Big
6
hipster
years.
as well. You're not going with the ultra popular ones.
No, what you need is the start of a chant, Sadio in the park, and everyone's Mane. He knows the assignments.
Sadio, go with Sadio. Welcome aboard, DJ Shelvin has joined us as first team member on YouTube as well.
Welcome to the party.
Big Mad Andy saying my cat is literally called Andy. There you go, well done. Brad Loxley, dog named Kenny. Tom, of course, named his cat Kenny as well. Good name. Good cat name is Kenny.
I had a cat called Stringer Bell. Yeah. But I didn't know she was a girl when I called her that. And we kept the name.
Yeah. Sad. And Jim Jones says Pajak. Good. Go with that.
Like that. But you'd have to keep spelling it. So Pajak. Pajak.
Yeah, you're committed to that for the rest of its life.
Sorry, Tom.
Right, Sad. Thank you so much for joining us for the podcast this week. That was an absolute pleasure. Do check out more from us, streaming exclusively on the redmentv.com. If you want more about the weekend's fixtures just gone, then the Around the League show is every Monday. We've got Red's News Roundup show on Wednesdays, and we've got the Journo Insight on Thursdays as well. And of course, loads of extra bits and pieces around that you can get in video and in podcast form. And if you join as a club legend, you get bonus extra features, and you get entered into a boss competition every week, and you get your name in the credits of shows on YouTube now as well.
What are you doing tonight, lads?
We are doing
anything good?
We are doing the watch on Liverpool Porto.
Try not to offend any Marys or Andrews on that show.
Right, Sal, thank you so much for checking us out. We'll see you all soon. All the best. Thanks so much for checking out the show this week. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, then do. But if you want more from us, extra Redmen shows, then go to the redmentv.com. You can support the channel at 2 levels, by Club Captain or Club Legend tier. Both get you a full suite of Liverpool-related content, extra Redmen shows, documentaries, features, and world-exclusive interviews. And Club Legends get their names here and on the end of those videos, and free merchandise as well. Perfect time to sign up on the redmentv.com.